Gabriad here, coming at you with a new series. We're going to be looking card by card through all of the cards that I think are just generally the best in the game. I think it's more beneficial that we look at those cards. It's all my opinion, but I think you can be pretty set that I will support my opinion with evidence that the card is great. And we're not even going to look at ones that I don't think are good, because I don't think it's much help for me to tell you that I think a card is bad, because just because I am bad with a card does not mean the card is bad, and I've definitely seen a lot of evidence for that. I think most cards are actually pretty good in Monster Train. It's just very hard for any single player to be great with all of them. So I'm just going to go over the ones that I find a lot of success with, and what better one to start off with here than Ritual of Battle. This is a card that I think is often overlooked as being a very strong card. You should be picking it more often than you're not. If you're not, you're probably just not doing it right. Now, this is the card here. It's 3 Ember, apply Rage 10. It's not that exciting at 3 Ember, right? Like, that's pretty expensive. It's a card at the common tier, so if you see this little white dot here, that means it's a common tier card. Rarity, common, uncommon, and rare. The thing with these common cards is they're only either offered in your opening hand that you're kind of randomly generated with, or your opening deck, I should say. And then the Ring 1 rewards and the Ring 2 rewards, and that's it. Past that point in the game, they're not offered. So when you see these, it's like, yeah, it costs 3 Ember, and by that point in the game, you most certainly only have 3 Ember to spend in any given turn. So it's not that surprising that a lot of people kind of sleep on this card. I think the thing that you really got to realize is it's pretty easy to decrease the Ember cost of cards in this game, and when you get this thing down to 1 cost, then it becomes a very exciting card. And that's, if you think about it, any Merchant of Magic, you're guaranteed to be able to do that as long as you have 110 gold. That's 225 gold upgrades to get the Ember down twice, and then the 60 gold reroll. So that's not that high of a price to pay. I would consider this card, though, as a result, kind of a high investment card. Some cards you add them and they're just already good. You don't need upgrades. You don't need specific upgrades. This one's high investment that you are going to have to spend 2 Ember upgrades on it for it to properly get its value. But the nice thing is you're not looking for any specific upgrade that you'd have to hunt for. Like Perils, for example, you're probably going to want Holdover. A lot of cards want like one specific upgrade that may or may not show up. This one doesn't need that. And in fact, I would even add to that and say I don't recommend double stacking it unless you've found the Value Stone. The Value Stone is the minus 2 Ember upgrade at the Divine Temples. If you do that, that's fine. Like a 2 cost double stack, 2 cost for 20 Rage is fine. But I don't think 3 cost for 20 Rage is really that worth it. I'd much rather just have a 1 Ember, a 10 Rage card that's a lot less awkward to play. Similarly, I wouldn't hold it over at 2 Ember, like just do 1 Ember upgrade and a holdover. But I would do it if I had the Value Stone. And that also applies, if you have the Lightstone casing, the artifact that gives an extra spell slot, that's also another way you can make that work. Generally, though, if I want to double stack it, it needs to be a 2 cost, not a 3 cost. And if I want to hold it over, it's got to be a 1 cost or less. And there's 2 exceptions to those rules. One is, and they're both artifacts. One would be Volatile Gauge. I would still probably prefer putting Ember upgrades on it, but at that point you're fine to probably, double stack it, even if you don't have any Ember upgrades on it. And also Split Anvil, that's the artifact that you play a high cost card and it makes everything cheap. Obviously at that point you don't need to upgrade Ritual Battle, and you're fine to leave it at a 3 or maybe a 2 cost, whatever makes more sense for your deck. So let's go ahead and jump over to the data really quick. Alright, so here we're looking at the dashboard that I had made for some of those earlier videos. I've narrowed it down from just July onward because that's when I've, kind of an arbitrary date that I think I've kind of made some big strides, especially with Hellhorned. And just trying to, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here or anything. Maybe I am, but I'm just trying to illustrate that, I have around a 92% win rate with Hellhorn. This is all Covenant 25, Divinity only, no reloads. Almost every one of those videos is on my channel. I try to upload most of my runs. And that's why I'm kind of, for the series, I'm going to go clan by clan probably, and we're going to start with Hellhorn. I'm hoping by the time I get to the other clans, probably Awoken's second in line, I'm hoping I can get to at least around 85% before I really start doing the cards of any of the other clans. Even if it means I bump up my date to August, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that I'm giving you good advice that you can trust, right? Like, you can trust I'm giving you good Hellhorn advice when I have a win rate where I can basically win most of my runs with Hellhorn, right? So if we go over here, I'm looking just at Hellhorn cards, and I'm sorting by my wins. Same time frame, starting at July. So this is all narrowed down to that time frame where I'm having a pretty good win rate, particularly with Hellhorn. So, Ritual Battle comes in at third here, which, if you look around at the competition, it's pretty stiff competition. And I don't really think of it as third best. I basically think of this as like anything in this range here, all rounds out to about the same value to me, which is basically that I can pick it quite often and win with it quite often, right? There's little shifts in win rate here and there, but at this amount of sample size, I don't pay much mind to that. I would only pay mind to that if I saw like a significant loss count. Like, I'm not gonna really look at Torch and be like, oh, Torch has issues or anything, right? Like, you always have Torch. There's gonna be some losses. Well, you don't always have Torch. 50% of the time you have Torch. But anyway, Ritual, it comes in here at 26-1, and it would have been 26-0 if not for like 2 days ago, that loss, which I had a Ritual in it that I wasn't really utilizing. So it's not Ritual's fault that I lost that one, but you can see here that Ritual is very well represented here. So obviously this card is good. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm focusing on cards that are good, and you can trust me that I'm steering you in the right direction with these. And we're going to get to most of the stuff on this page eventually here with Hellhorn, but for now we're looking at Ritual Battle. And another little bit of data here is, like I said with the upgrades, you'll see by far the most common upgrade I do is the double Emberstone. That's, double Ember upgrade on it so that it goes down to 1 Ember. 13-0 with that. And then there's a big drop off to the other combos here, but Value Stone shows up a lot too. Obviously, Value Stone's very good. There's just a little more iterations of what you have there. And this is kind of what I was talking about here. You'll not really see Stack Stone represented here with an Ember Stone. I only do it with Value Stone. I think an Ember Stone and Stack Stone is not that good. Like I said, 3 Embers, just a little bit too much, even for 20 Rage. It's not horrible, but you're just going to have so much easier of a time to play this thing if it's cheap, like 2 or less Ember. And even a single Ember Stone is decent. I have 3-0 there, but, so on and so forth. The main thing here is like Ember Stone and Value Stone. That's what you're seeing here most of the time. Keep Stone would be Holdover. You don't even see that much. And this might have been just some Ritual type run. At that point, 2 cost is fine to keep it over. And that's really the only parts related to data that I wanted to show here. I mean, there's not much I have on card data other than that, just the upgrades and support that, yes, I pick it a lot and it wins a lot, right? So the other part that it can't really be explained in data is, when do I pick this thing, right? Like, when do I pick Ritual of Battle versus anything else, right? Well, keep in mind, like I said, common tier, you only get 2 shots at this. If it's not in your opener deck, the one generated by the start of the seed, you only get that first ring and second ring rewards to see it. So if you see it, you really want to think about snagging it, because that's your only time that you can do it. Now, a good rule to live by is offense is better than defense, in my opinion. So if you don't have any offensive scaling, that should be your first priority to add in any deck. So let's say you didn't really have, and not only that, it has to be good offense. Like if my only offensive scaling was something like a Sharpen or a something that just gave like 3 attack or 2, stuff that doesn't really have super high value in terms of scaling your attack. Why can't I remember the name? The Awoken card that costs 0 and gives you 3/3. That's another good example. I would still just say I'm going to take a Ritual here because Sharpen and stuff like that just isn't good enough. So basically, if I didn't have good offensive scaling and I see my Hellhorn draft, Ritual of Battle or Fledgling Imp absolutely trump everything else in the list, in my opinion. Even something like a Hidden Passage, unless you had really good reason, by the way. If you have a really good reason to take these, then you can break from the rule, right? But if you're kind of confused and going back and forth, you're never going to be wrong to take a Ritual of Battle. Now, as for determining the choice between a Ritual and a Fledgling Imp, that'll really come down to the situation. I don't think you can go wrong with either. Ritual is a little safer in that it doesn't really, again, like Fledgling needs that Endless to really shine. It doesn't absolutely need it, but it sure could use it. Whereas Ritual, you're guaranteed to find the upgrades that you want. The only RNG present there is where the Merchant of Magics show up on the map. Like maybe it's a little awkward to hit one, or you don't hit one in the next ring or so. But beyond that, you're guaranteed to find it. Plus, you can also just find the Valley of Stone upgrade at any Divine Temple. There's a 1 out of 3 chance to find that, right? So as far as choosing between the two, the higher ceiling is definitely Fledgling Imp. It can really carry a run, but Ritual can also carry a run. And even if it doesn't necessarily hard carry it, it at least provides the offensive scaling and basically all of the offensive scaling you need in a run. The nice thing also about Ritual of Battle versus Fledgling Imp is I don't need pip space, and I don't need to manage my pip space in order to make it good. I can overstack a floor, or even beyond overstacking floor, I can just have a floor where maybe only 2 kind of banner units fit on it, and Ritual will work just fine. Now, one thing I will say about Ritual is it really likes to have only one main damage dealer to truly shine. You can use it and split it between 2 units, but it's just a lot less effective that way. One thing you got to keep in mind with Rage is if you are like trying to spread it between 2 units, the Rage will tick down. The tick down on the Rage affects you a little bit more there because now it's ticking down twice instead of just once per turn. But also just, if you generally want like 1 unit to have some multi-strike, and that's the one you want to be pouring all of your damage upgrades into. All of your rituals, stack all that Rage, or just a sweeper, or better yet, a multi-striking sweeper. So, good targets are like Animus of Will, any sweeper, Horned Warrior, anything that can just sit in the back or the front. Sometimes you put it on a frontliner that can, like a Rail Beater with multi-strike, can fit either role. Like it can just sit there in front and do damage if it needs to. But the idea is you need 1 unit that will output most of your damage, and that needs to be the target of the rituals. So unit-wise, that's kind of the way you need to think about Ritual of Battle. And then also, even beyond that, deck-wise, you have to keep, if you're relying on rituals, you don't want a fat deck, and you want to be drawing well. Draw upgrades are plenty welcome. This is, again, why I really stress you get that Ember cost down, because you don't want to have to be forced into taking Ember upgrades. So usually you want double draw upgrade. Usually you want to Hellvent the Ritual of Battle at least once, maybe even 2 or 3 times. The earlier you can get it upgraded, the better. That way you can hit those early Hellvents. And the nice thing about the double Emberstone upgrade is it doesn't cost any shards to Hellvent that. Though if I did find the Valley Stone, I'd almost certainly lock it in anyway, and I'd still Hellvent it. I wouldn't be afraid of that. But yeah, so you want as many in the deck as you need. Once you know you have enough scaling, if you can play it, nearly once a turn on average, that should be good enough. 10 rage is 20 damage at the floor. And keep in mind there's things like Resonant Shard and Deranged Brute, which can really spike that up, right? Or even something like the Collection of Tales, which will take away the downtick effect of rage. So, yeah, just to reiterate, if you don't have damage scaling, the only choices would be like, if I saw Fledgling Imp and Ritual, I'd have to make a choice there. Otherwise, like if Fledgling Imp's not there, if I don't have offensive scaling and it shows me like Welder Helper, something else that's like generally pretty good for defense, I will take the Ritual almost every time. Now there are some slight, of course, some differences there. Like sometimes a Shard Tail might want a Welder Helper more. It really depends on what your setup is there. Like if you have an Imperialist setup and you really just want to have a good imp to put on Endless, then that can probably trump Ritual in that case. But generally, much like taking a draw upgrade is always safe, you're kind of always safe to take Ritual, I would say. Now, let's say that you did have enough damage scaling and you see Ritual of Battle alongside something else. Then, yeah, you got to make a choice. Like if I already have, say, 2 Razor Sharp Edges, those are pretty decent offensive scaling cards. I wouldn't say they're as good as Ritual, but they're decent. And if my deck had like no AoE or no defensive scaling, I might then start think about adding something like a Vent or a Hornbreak over Ritual Battle, or even like we talked about the Welder Helper. At that point I might want some defense over Ritual Battle. So then you have to make the choice. But I'll be honest, even with 2 Razor Sharp Edges, I don't think you'd be wrong necessarily to take Ritual of Battle. I often do it anyway. You just have to gauge what you're in most dire need of. Like if you don't have much health at all on your champ, you might want to just lock in a Welder Helper to give you that buffer room in case you roll a pretty squishy banner unit and whatnot, and especially if you don't find like health upgrades at the Merchant of Steel. Well, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. I'm curious as to everyone's thoughts here. What's your experience been with Ritual of Battle? Did I miss anything? Just let me know. And if you have any requests for anything to do next on this list, I will say it needs to basically show up on the front page here for me to have it be a candidate right now. You just let me know in the comments. Always love it when people comment, no matter what it is. And until next time, peace.